Welcome, everyone. Angela, do we have you on there somewhere? For some reason, you aren't popping up on the front page. All right, great. I'm kind of going to put you on the spot here, Angela. We're about ready to start the agenda with executive, emergency orders, and judicial branch changes. And in particular, we've got some updates. So what can you tell us about what happened on August 4th with Executive Order number 6?
Good morning. So there was an order put out, I believe the actual date was the 1st, but it was posted to the site on the 4th, and it had to do with outdoor gatherings and face coverings. And the changes were that you can have up to 100 persons in an outdoor space, provided it falls into the 5 people per 1,000 square foot limit. The indoor gathering has not changed. It's still set at most at 50 people. And then face coverings for children recently changed, where it's required for all children over the age of 5, but it's recommended for ages 2 to 4, as you can see, unless it's deemed developmentally inappropriate. You're muted, Thad.
Thank you. Thank you, Angela. And I'm going to piggyback on top of that. One of the things that also came out the day before was the Executive Order number 5. And we've already had a question come in on that about how that interacts with the new order related to filing FEDs and filling out, of course, the CARES Act questionnaire. It takes over, or it supersedes the order number 40 from the last fiscal year. So please, those of you that are doing FED work, take a look at that and be prepared for any changes. I think there might have been a day-long notice change that went to 45 days for at-will tenancies. I can't remember if Executive Order 40 had 45 days, but the non-payment of rent 30-day limit that was extended is the same as the Executive Order number 40 from the previous fiscal year. We also had a renewed state of civil emergency extended into September. And Angelo, you also posted about an answer we got back from the judiciary regarding Zoom conferencing. Can you update us on that?
Right. So we did have a question if closed captioning was available on Zoom. And in talking to the folks at the judicial branch, Zoom has a text, voice to text transcription, but not closed captioning, and they may look into other options for that, but as of right now, Google Meet does have it and will be available if necessary.
Thank you, Angela. So we have a special guest with us today. It's Judge Charles Dow, who's been with the Maine District Court since 2007. And he's actually worked on one of these committees that I was reviewing the judicial branch website, and I did not see this committee specifically mentioned about remote video court proceedings, which I'm sure is a PMO stand-up. And we're very happy to have him here with us, and we're hoping to learn a little bit more about the implementation of the new PMO SJC 7. And Judge Dow, I see you are with us.
I'm here.
Thank you. Thanks for being with us.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. I think there are at this point probably a lot of questions and fewer answers, but you know, as with all things pandemic related, if we work together and have a spirit of kindness, we can get through together. You're right that the working group was a fairly ad hoc. It was an internal judicial branch working group that was assembled after the SJC made a decision to move forward with Zoom as the platform. They asked a team, again, this is all judicial branch employees, what proceedings would lend themselves to remote platform. And so we worked pretty feverishly over just a short period of time. We had a pretty short window for making a report, and we did submit a report to them along with a proposed pandemic management order that has taken the form of PMO SJC 7. So that's what I think you invited me to talk about, to answer questions. And so I'm not sure where you'd like to start, or how you want us to proceed.
Yeah, Judge Dow, I appreciate it. I was hoping that you could kind of walk us through, essentially, for instance, I'll give you, and maybe some of these PMO orders work coincidentally, but I, for instance, had a hearing that was scheduled at 8:15, supposed to be uncontested divorce this week. I called on Friday and said, hey, it looks like it's going to be contested. It says we can use it as a case management conference. Can we dial in for this? The response was, file a motion. Well, yeah. I'm trying to avoid going to the court. So is there a way that if something is not clear that it's going to be telephonic or remote, that we can get it there and get it there efficiently?
Yeah, no, that's a good place to start. So in terms of timing of implementation, the pandemic order says effective immediately. So what's effective immediately? Does that mean that everything that's scheduled today in court is via Zoom? The answer is no. The guidance the clerks got was you're not to reschedule already scheduled activities. So presumably your uncontested divorce had been scheduled for a period of weeks, and there's been a lot of confusion. A lot of things are being rescheduled and rescheduled and rescheduled, and so we're trying to minimize the impact of that. And so I think a way to think about it is when the SJC says effective immediately, they mean that effective as soon as you're trained to use Zoom, Madam Clerk, send notices, Madam or Mr. Clerk, send notices for Zoom. We recognize that won't happen for a short period of time. So the process will be this: within the next few weeks, probably within the next couple of weeks, the judges and the clerks will be trained in Zoom. And then you should start to see notices. I think those of you who are practicing in York County will start to see notices before others, because the focus will be on York, consistent with judicial branch practice. That site has been selected to go first and presumably work out some of the bugs, identify some of the issues, rather than having a statewide rollout. So those of you in York, particularly Alfred Superior, can expect to see notices for Zoom proceedings sooner than others. But sometime within the next couple of months, probably after a month, we'll all start to see more proceedings by Zoom. But if something is already scheduled, don't expect it to be rescheduled to become a Zoom hearing.
Okay, so Judge Dow, so let's say we want a motion for contempt. We want to file one, and we want it heard as soon as possible. So what's like the best way to do something like that?
Well, a motion for contempt is covered by the in SJC 7. that's one of the proceedings. If you look at A2F, motion for contempt, so that's something that can happen in person. The default position under the order would be that would happen in person. So if you want it to be heard in a fashion other than in person, you may want to caption the motion so that that's something the court could act on, and you would have your rationale for why it would be a good thing to do by video in the motion. We haven't seen a lot of those, but you can see that the order in bold print, it doesn't enumerate, but does spell out some of the factors that ought to be considered by a court in switching the default. And so the court should consider the health and safety of court staff, parties, witnesses, the ability of parties to participate remotely, the effect of its decision will have on availability of other parties of limited, two other parties, I'm sorry, of limited judicial branch resources, including courtroom space, technology assistance, and clerical assistance. So, and that appears again and again. The backdrop from the judicial branch perspective is this is happening at the same time we're really ramping up the transition to Odyssey, to electronic case management, which is scheduled to go live in Penobscot County in the next couple of months. And so that's kind of an all hands on deck experience for the OIT staff. And so I think what you're seeing reflected in that bold print is concern about resources, technology resources, and OIT resources, because that's a small shop under any circumstances. And, you know, having the pandemic hit and then the transition to remote video proceedings is like you plan to replace the foundation of your house, you borrowed money for it, that was a big job. And then just as that's taking shape, you need to replace the roof too. And you have to factor in the fact that, you know, the danger involved with, you know, the risk associated with COVID-19. So I tried to think of an analogy, and maybe it's wintertime, and so you've got real hazard in doing your roof at this time of year, whatever it is, you know, there are real concerns to be accommodated. And so that staff is stretched very thinly, and you know, we'll have to do a lot of training and a lot of feeling our way along.
Now, Judge Dow, you said OIT. Is that the Office of Information Technology?
Yes.
And are they the ones also doing the Zoom training?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, the good news is there are a lot of great resources that Zoom provides. And so one recommendation I would have for all who are participating in the call, the more we all know about Zoom and how it works and what its capacity is and what can cause problems, the better off we'll be. And so if there's downtime in your office and either you yourself or someone in the office can watch some of the videos that Zoom puts out. I've watched a lot of them. They're, you know, in bite-sized pieces. They address a specific issue. So in 5 or 10 minutes, you can have a lot of education about how a particular function of Zoom works. And I would recommend that, because we're really going to have to all come up to speed on how it works, what it can do, and where it can fall short, how some of the issues can be worked around.
Judge Dow, I'm making a note right now about making sure that we have some Zoom training available to our members too at our next rollout CLE. We're working with your branch there on putting together the rollout electronic filing CLE. Currently, well, Angela has that in our business side updates. It's scheduled for August 26th, and she can tell us more about that too. But it looks like if Zoom is going to be the platform for any of these hearings that we have coming into the future, then Zoom would be important for our members to make sure we learn too.
I agree, absolutely.
And are there any like rules that are going to come out with regard to privacy in Zoom too, as far as like, you know, if the court's hosting a Zoom hearing, how are we going to make sure that there aren't other people listening in or involved or recording it when they shouldn't be, or various things like that?
Yeah, I mean that's a great question. I think the short answer is I don't know whether there will be judicial branch rules around. I think that I read the order to say the rules apply. In fact, it says that explicitly, that the rules apply, and by that I think it means the ban on recording applies. It could be part of the best practices for judge or justice to make a reminder, or a clerk who's convening a conference to issue a reminder that there's no unauthorized recording, that devices, this PMO order says specifically that electronic devices are to be turned off when testifying, for example, by witnesses. So that those rules would all apply. And Zoom itself has done a lot of work, I think, since the beginning of the pandemic on improving security. I'm sure that the Bar Association, as a fairly early adopter of Zoom, has gone through generation 1, 2, and 3 of the different security protocols implemented by Zoom over the course of the pandemic. And I expect that we're counting on the platform itself to provide some of the security we need to have good security on our court proceedings.
So one of the things that has caused issues before, at least with this remote, either whether it's Google Meets or whether it's Zoom, with remote proceedings, is these self-represented litigants. What workarounds have you seen related to the self-represented regarding video conferencing?
Well, I think that smartphone solves a lot of problems, and Zoom is pretty easy to download and use on a smartphone. Now, of course, not everybody has them. The good news is a lot of libraries are beginning to open up. Sometimes there's a phone, but there's not an adequate connection. In cases like those, we might suggest that people go to places where Wi-Fi is available, including the courthouse. And so one could be inside a courthouse or just outside a courthouse and tapping in to the Wi-Fi. But I think these problems need to be solved on a case-by-case basis. Some of my worries about this were reduced when I found out that the drug courts in Washington County at the beginning of the pandemic transitioned immediately to Zoom. In fact, didn't miss a week. And that's a very rural area, of course, and a very poor area. And so that says a lot. And one of the things I think it says is that the access to case management that comes with being in a drug court can help work out some of the bugs, some of the challenges that people experience. So that has to be factored in. My hope is that as we all learn more about Zoom and how it works and how to solve problems, that we can help people who are experiencing barriers with getting what they need and putting the pieces together. The other thing to keep in mind is there are lots of barriers to having in-person conferences too. And so while this may create problems for some litigants, it may solve problems for other litigants. And we all just need to work together to make it happen.
So there's a little bit of chat going on about Zoom right now, talking about its availability, so forth. And we did get one of our questions answered that Angela posted up. I guess just one of the issues that I saw with asking for something to happen remotely is whether or not it's a time to use one of the email addresses you have with the court to file a motion, and whether or not you're supposed to be turning one in via paper. Do you have any thoughts on that, guidance on that?
That has been one of the challenges as we've tried to transition, is what's the email address to which we can send an invitation. And so I believe when you get a new summary, that it'll be required on the new summary sheet when you're filing a case, and cases that have been initiated. I believe that clerks are now sending sheets that say, tell us, be in touch with us, let us know what your email address is, so that we can send an invitation, because that is one of the barriers for sure.
So any thoughts that you have before we're about ready to roll off here and go to the next phase of our agenda? And I really appreciate you chiming in with us. Any thoughts that you have on what we should be keeping in mind as we're trying to transition to a fully open, or a fully, I could say, accessible court? And along with that, maybe comment on this bridge class that I know that you've been doing, I think with Judge Lawrence at the law school, and how you envision that class happening in the future, and what parts of it you think are going to change.
Oh gosh, I hadn't thought of that. That's usually a spring class, so it starts in January and runs for a couple of months. In fact, you may see, those of you who are in district court a lot may see well-dressed young people and what they're observing, because that's one of the requirements of the class that I teach along with Judge Lawrence and now Judge Woodman. But I don't know. I guess we'll have to do whatever the law school has in mind for us at that time. If you have law students in your life, please recommend that they take the class, because not because it makes, not that we get a commission, but I think that students tend to like the class, and it's a good antidote for that kind of heady, case heavy, appellate case heavy curriculum that, so I can get in and there are a lot of human stories, and it's fast paced and so forth. It's quite a bit different from what they generally are learning. It's very practical. Parting words, I would say what we say a lot in that main district court practice class at the law school, that it's there's still a human experience, and we're going to have to be kind and understanding with each other as we make this transition to more video court proceedings. And the idea is, if we can do well at it, then we will have a better chance of keeping ourselves, your clients, our families healthy, and while we wait for some of these issues to resolve. So we really appreciate the work of the MSBA and getting the word out, and I look forward to working with you on this new challenge.
I appreciate that, Judge Dow. Before you leave, though, Angela reminded me that we did forward you a couple questions.
Yeah.
Did you have a chance? I know it was just before you came on. Did you have a couple chance?
One was about FED. What about, how does the new order affect cases that are already in process? I think is basically the gist of the question.
Right. The new Executive Order 5 as it relates to superseding Executive Order 40.
Yeah. I think the best answer I can give to that is I don't know.
Okay.
You know, with a lot of these things, there's not inside information to share. We get the orders like you do, we read the orders like you do, and we do our best to apply them. And so, you know, it's to be determined on how we all end up construing these rules as they apply to FEDs. And
Sure.
the
The
second,
other, yeah, the other one was on rule, sorry, the other one was on rule 80K, and Chief French answered part of our question on that by adding it to the new PMO. But there was a question about penalty days, I guess. That
I think that's a great question, and on that one, I really don't know. I mean, that's a good question.
okay, so we can, that's fine. We can forward that up through Amy Quinlan and see how it comes out the other end. That's fine.
Yeah, that's a good question. I suspect it would be subject to litigation. Maybe the legislature will address it when they come in, like these, because that really does get at a key issue on the penalty phase of those cases. So I'm anxious to find out the answer to that, just like you all are.
Okay, and Angela, were there any questions that came up on chat that we need to hit? No, okay. Judge Dow, thank you very much. You're welcome to, listen in on the rest of what we have here. I know that you've got things going on in the court too. I appreciate you breaking away for these minutes that you gave us. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks very much.
All right, Angela, can we head to the business side updates?
Sure. As was earlier mentioned, August 26th, the Maine State Bar Association and the Judicial Branch will be collaborating on a kickoff event, CLE, for the e-file Maine. And we're still working on a few of the how this is going to go, but basically this will be the kickoff. We'll explain a lot of things. Then there will be some trainings of literally how to do things that Tyler Technology will run separately on various days. And then we will also have a follow-up to this kickoff to specifically discuss the rules and the questions that go around the rules of e-filing. So we'll keep you informed of that. We'll be sending out stuff very soon on that CLE.
And I just want to piggyback on that for a second too, Angela, to just throw out to you all. I think I've said this before, but there was a great question asked by Al Ayer at our January training, which is, hey, why do we care about what's rolling out in District 5 if we don't practice primarily in District 5? And the reason is, if you've got a case where you're representing someone with a case that's filed in District 5, you're going to have to participate in District 5 with electronic filing.
That is correct.
Angela? Yeah.
So moving on, want to give everybody a heads up that the Board of Governors has suspended all in-person meeting and events through December 31st. That means section events, CLEs, anything basically MSB entity related. Obviously, if something significant changes before December 31st, that would allow us to have in-person meetings, we can always revisit that. And if it looks like things are not getting any better as we get close to December 31st, the board has a meeting at the beginning of December and will probably make a decision whether that date needs to be extended. So, but as of right now, it is through December 31st. The board also voted to form a BIPOC section, which is the BIPOC stands for Black, Indigenous, and People of Color. That section has had an initial meeting. If you're interested in participating, don't hesitate to reach out to me and let me know. But that initial meeting was just to start talking about what the section, what the focus is, what the goals are. So you haven't missed anything if you want to participate in the future. The other item that the BOG voted on is they're recommending an amendment to the bylaws that creates a BIPOC section seat on the board. So very much like our new lawyers section seat and our women's law section seat, this new seat will be voted on by the members of that section for who will take that seat on the board. Now, obviously, this is a recommendation from the board. It still has to go to the membership for a vote for approval, and we'll be doing that at some point, hopefully in the near future, but it does have to be at a meeting of the membership. So we're still working on that. This just happened last week.
Thank you very much, Angela. And to you all, I know that we live in a great state, and that's why probably most of us are here instead of in another. And I'm very, very happy for the privilege to live and work here. Just to piggyback onto what Angela said, we did establish this diversity committee that has made recommendations to us, which we enacted as part of our Board of Governors, and we're happy for all the work that they've done too. Angela, thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Have a great week.